Hi YouTube, it's Alan Sugano, president of ADS Consulting Group, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what happened to a client last week. So I got a call from one of my friends who also owns their own consulting company, and he was on vacation, and one of his clients unfortunately got hit with a pretty nasty virus. It's a virus that's called, it has what's called lateral movement. And essentially, if you get hit with one of these pieces of malware, what it does is it'll infect one computer and then move laterally from one computer to another computer to another computer to another computer and just propagate itself that way. So the biggest problem that they had with it is that they were using some security software called Sentinel-1, and Sentinel-1 was picking up on the fact that they had lateral movement, but it wasn't really cleaning up the virus infection, so to speak. So I talked with their on-site support person, and we kind of went through what was going on. And I said, okay, we use Webroot for our antivirus. I said, okay, well, he said what was happening is he would clean it up on one computer, and then he would work on another computer, and they were in a situation where they couldn't take down all the computers, which is certainly one way to fix this, and just clean everything up and then bring them up one at a time to monitor them. But what's happening is they would clean up one computer, and then another one, and then they would go back an hour or two later, and the computer would get reinfected, and then get reinfected, and get reinfected. So I said, okay, well, your options are, you've got to shut down everything. He's like, well, that's really a non-starter. So what we decided to do is I said, okay, go ahead and try to use Webroot. They downloaded a trial version of Webroot, and the good news is that it picked up that the machine was infected. We ran a scan, did a cleanup. Also, the better news is that it also prevented the computer from getting reinfected. So what they ended up doing is I said, okay, you know what you have to do. So go ahead and install Webroot on every single computer. Go ahead and run a scan, run a cleanup, make sure it stays clean. So he did that. He was able to remove the infection. But it also is kind of more of a symptom of some other issues that on how hackers get in. So the other one is they weren't up to date on patches. So most likely the initial infection came from an exploit to take advantage of a vulnerability that wasn't being patched. So that's one of the things is you have to stay up with patches. It's becoming more and more important. We try to get patches on within, a week or two of certainly when they're released. The other one is they were using a managed firewall. Now, managed firewalls, depending on your vendor and how responsive they are, can be great. In this particular instance, it was a significant hindrance because what was happening is the machines would get infected, and one of the things they were doing is they're going out to a command and control center, a server, to wait for instructions, and that's what's called when the machine gets zombified. So the problem with that is that because we didn't have visibility into the firewall, we couldn't figure out what servers it was connecting to, and more importantly, we couldn't block it in real time because a lot of times what these viruses do is they have multiple command and control servers. They'll go try to hit that one, this one, that one, that one, that one. So you have to really be able to catch that in real time and, hey, we'll get back to you in an hour to try to troubleshoot this. Like, no, I need somebody now, and I need them to be on the phone for the next 6 hours interactively so we can figure out what's going on. So that was another significant hindrance. The other one that also is becoming super, super important is end user training. So it looks like somebody was a fish and they clicked on something and that was where ground zero was. Then it was just basically all heck broke loose as the machines were getting infected. So to prevent against these types of attacks, a couple of things. One, use a good antivirus software like Webroot. Number two, probably try to stay away from a managed firewall unless they are insanely responsive. That's number two. Number three, you got to stay up to date with patches. One of the things that's really scary is they say now when a vulnerability is announced, you have about 2 to 3 days before hackers will develop an exploit to take advantage of that vulnerability. And the last one is end user training. So end user training is becoming more and more important because it doesn't really matter what IT puts in. An end user, maybe just because they weren't thinking or just not aware or had their little antennas up, can basically sabotage or bypass all these safeguards I've put in. The analogy that I use is like, look, your car has airbags, it's got seat belts, it's got collision detection, it's got blind spot monitoring, blah, blah, blah. But if you make the conscious or unconscious decision to drive your car off a cliff, I don't care what you have, it's going to end up bad. That's why end user training is becoming more and more important. That's the 4 tips of the day. Please stay safe out there. If you like this content, please boink, hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep making this content. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.